What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Alex here from Team Generations, coming at you with not one, not two, but 3 decks for Dragon Empire. Now, recently I've been just like super pressed for time, so instead of releasing separate videos for each one of these, I figured I might as well just combine them. There's not like crazy changes that have happened in a lot of these different decks, and I don't think I've profiled Eugene yet, but I finally feel like we're at like a playable point for Eugene now, not to be just like an absolute joke. So I'm really looking forward to this. This is my first time combining multiple decks into like one video like this, so very excited. And without further ado, let's hop right in. And before we jump into it, I just wanted to quickly mention that if you are interested in purchasing any of the cards that you see here today, we do have a TCG player affiliate link down in the description below. If you are enjoying the content, make sure to leave a thumbs up on the video, possibly subscribe to the channel if you are into it. And then without further ado, let's hop right in. All right, let's hop into the main deck now. We are going to be looking at still 3 of Divine Dragon, Chakyabara, whatever its name is, Divine Dragon Nirvana. This is coming straight from the trial deck. No real changes here. The counterblast to give your 10k to the front row is still pretty good. On top of that, we do want a Persona Ride, just gain that hand advantage, and to give that 10k to the front row. Nothing really to say kind of crazy here, so I'll just move on. I think it's pretty standard at this point and accepted. And then next up, we did get a new grade 3 boss unit, kind of, or I guess I really want to say this is a support unit. At first, I really didn't think this put on enough pressure or enough change to the deck. I saw some people not even running it, which I was thinking, let me try that. But honestly, I don't mind this card at all. This is really kind of, think about it like in Grand Blue when you're ready to kind of close out a game, you'll come out with like your Skull Dragons. That's kind of what this is in a way. So let me go over its skill first. This is Verena Expecta. Its skill, it does have the Overdress ability and continues on Rearguard Circle. This unit gets the original power of all of its original dress. Its second skill, auto on Rearguard Circle. When this unit attacks a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, if this unit is in the Overdress state, we get to counterblast 1. This guy gets an additional 15k plus a crit until the end of battle. At the end of battle, put all this unit's original dress into the drop. So you're kind of looking to kind of dump your load with this guy. If you want to kind of pace and just make sure that you have like a really big unit that can't be easily kind of crashed into on board, you can keep the the original dress kind of guys underneath it. But overall, I feel like this is kind of a later game card. I want to just kind of poke at them with like the same strategy we've been doing for the past 2 sets, and then when I think I'm really able to like extend and then close out my game, that's when I'm gonna pop this guy down. Obviously, if you don't have anything else to put down, it still has the Overdress, still gonna get that 10k from your Vanguard. But overall, this hits like that 53k number really easily. It can be boosted to get over that. You hit triggers, put it on this. This is gonna be like a really threatening card overall, and I think this is like the only thing that's kind of keeping us in relevancy for this current meta. Right now, obviously, Bruce is still really strong. Lauren Roll still like very high roll. There are a couple decks that do get around and kind of make this deck not feel great, but overall, I think that our hand advantage, our hand size, and just our general pace of play is so easy and smooth in this deck that when you're ready to drop this down, you shouldn't really have too many problems. And if you're calling the game correctly, I think that this can definitely shut your opponent out. So that's the SP foil. I didn't get my second SP yet, but I have a couple of those on the way actually, but I'm just running that at 2 of. Like I said, it is a later game card, and I don't think you want to be spamming those down, wasting out your units. I think you want to, like I said, play low and slow for a while, put on like 1, maybe 2 turns, and then boom, on your 3rd grade 3 turn, if you make it that long, like that'll kind of close it out. Maybe your 2nd grade 3 turn. You really have to read the game. It's up to you. But overall, it is definitely a nice tool to have in our arsenal. And I don't think this guy is really replaced quite yet. These cards do different things. So this is still Verena Valiente. Its skill continues on Rearguard Circle. This guy gets 5k for each of this unit's original dress. And then its skill, once per turn, auto on Rearguard Circle. When this unit attacks, when it hits, basically, counterblast 1, discard a card from your hand, and stand this unit. So what Expected does is put on hit pressure with an extra crit. So you're basically telling your opponent, all right, you can't guard with like, I'm gonna hit you for game if you take this. Whereas this guy is kind of helping you whittle them down, like just making them discard for preventing another hit. It's not as good as Expecta in a lot of ways, but it's hard to explain. It's just, they don't fill the same role, and I feel like having one of them still in the deck, still putting that threat on, still could be a big body on the board, and basically telling your opponent, you need to get rid of this, or else I'm just gonna put this multi-attack pressure on you every single turn. So multi-attack pressure compared to on-hit crit pressure. Just a little bit different, but still I'm taking it in at a 1 of. I think that's kind of where we've arrived at. There's not too much space for that guy. That definitely isn't like the lifeblood of our deck. Unlike this guy, which definitely still is. So we are going to be moving into the grade 2s now. We are going to be looking at 4 Verena Arcs. So I've got those other SPs under there. Still need to get 1 more. I can't believe I haven't gotten 1 more the whole time. But it basically has the Overdress ability, and then its skill auto when this unit is placed on Rearguard Circle. It's in the Overdress state. You get to counterblast 1, draw 2 cards, and this unit gets 5k until the end of turn. So there's going to be times where you have Expecta, you might have have Valiente in your hand, and you still want to go into this, you know, like this is 2 cards in your hand. If you think that your opponent has too many cards in theirs, you know, they're just going to be able to block out your big grade 3 kind of attacks, just don't be afraid to ride this guy. Pop down, draw 2 cards, just you're in control of the tempo. You know, you're still going to hit nice numbers. This guy will probably hit 35, you know, your Persona ride, boom, that's 25 for this guy with the skill. On top of that, you know, 35 for your Vanguard skill if you boost it too. It could be even over that. So you're still making like pretty decent numbers. I know it's not enabling a multi-attack or anything, but this is just giving you the ability to survive a little bit longer. Also, on your grade 2 turn, if you have them in your hand, it's never like a bad idea to kind of pop that down, get that extra card advantage a little bit earlier, and get some different Overdress cards in your hand. So I think this is still a great card. Absolutely need to be maxing it out at a 4 of. Don't think there's any really question marks there. And then next up, we are still looking at a card from a DBT-02. We are going to be looking at 4 of Verena Urger. So Urger is still enabling our multi-attack. Basically, you swing with your Trick Star once at the end of the battle when it already swung. You get to Soul Blast 2, call this guy out on top and ride at his stand. Gets an extra 10k, and then you get to countercharge 1. Yeah, really just a good multi-attacker. It also gets an extra, 10k shield as well, yeah. So it makes your field a little bit bulky, kind of says like, all right, you need to either get rid of this guy by crashing into it or using skills. I know there are a lot of things in the game right now that do kind of retire units, which is kind of annoying when the whole premise of this deck is really to waste cards from hands, overdressing on top of each other. So this guy just helps us gain a little bit more value, because if we're calling down that Trick Star, we're getting 1 attack. You know, if you Persona Road, you boosted that Trick Star, could hit for that 25, 28k kind of number. On top of that, this guy pops down, boom, you hit a 30k column, hit a front trigger, whatever it is, it could be way over that. So I personally really like it. I think that it is a decent card. Still maxing it out at 4 of, and yeah. I don't think people really trimmed that card down too much, but this is one card that we kind of did. I did like this at 3, but I just couldn't really find space for it. If you don't want Valiente in the deck, I would bump this up 1 more, but this is Verena, just the regular one. This is still a really, really good card. I kind of underestimated this in the first set, but when this unit is in the Overdress state and attacks the Vanguard, this guy gets an extra 10k until the end of battle. Then we can Soul Blast, what is it, 2 over there? Yeah, I think it's 2. Choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. So just getting a little bit of the board clear. We don't really want to use that second skill too much. We just really want it for having that extra, 10k on it. On top of this too, don't be afraid to just call this down to, like, if you're playing Prison, for example, this is actually a really good card. You call this down and, it still has the Overdress ability. You're gonna just still get that 10k from your Vanguard, and you could potentially get another 10k from like a Persona ride or something. So still making like decent numbers, and you don't need to have anything underneath this really. If you are in the Overdress state, obviously you get that extra 10k, but don't forget that all these cards that we are pretty much going over do have that Overdress ability, and they still get that 10k regardless. So I know Prison kind of is like a weird matchup for this deck, but like I said, play it low and slow, earn the tempo of the game, make sure you're in control of it, and if you are, I think the games pretty much will go your way almost every single time. All right, next up, we're gonna go into the grade 1s. We got actually a pretty interesting grade 1 over here. Let me slap these around. I actually hate that I can't show the SPs as first, but it's just so much easier to read the regular ones. When this unit is placed on rearguard circle, counterblast 1, look at 7 cards on the top of our deck, choose 1 card with the Overdress ability from among them, reveal it and put it into our hand, and shuffle your deck. This is Blaze Maiden Kimena. So Kimena is really actually a decent card. I think for so long, a lot of our turns kind of got stuck. We were like, okay, like if we don't have Overdress cards in our hand, it just kind of sucked. The whole deck kind of just fell apart. It just did not work. And I know most of the deck in here are Overdress cards, but this kind of helps us tutor for like what we really want. Top 7 is a pretty deep search. I know there are cards that do search your deck for XYZ, but top 7 is kind of like the best we can generally get for like a generic kind of search in Vanguard. So I actually do like this. I think it kind of helps you with the flow of the game if you want to become just a little bit more, maybe I want an Arcs for a certain situation. Maybe I just want the regular old Verena. Whatever the case may be, she can go and dig it for you. So I really like it. It helps us get to that Expecta a little bit later into the game too, when your deck is kind of thinned out already. So I do like this card. I think at a 3 of it's right. If you see too many, like you don't have so many counterblasts. I know that we countercharge with what was it? Oh god, was it Verena Arcs? Was it? No, not Arcs. Oh god, I forgot the name of it. Urger. But we don't really have like a ton of counterblasts because you're going to be using at least 1 for a rear guard pretty much every turn. On top of that, you're going to be using it for your for your Vanguard. So the rare opportunity where you have like 3 of them, or you may have an Urger just to be able to play with 2. It just is kind of hard. So I think 3 is the right number. 4 is just a little bit too counterblast heavy in this deck. Next up, still an oldie but goldie here from set 2. This is going to be Stealth Dragon Tagashirashi. So Tagashirashi, essentially when discarded from hand, you just put it into your soul. And in a deck that discards a lot from hand overall, either for A, the obviously the ride line, but B for Nirvana skill. I think that this is just like a really good card. Still need our soul for our Urger plays. We still need them potentially for the Verena plays too. So just a good card. I don't think there's anything else I'd really replace it with. You can choose to go with that grade 1 that gives an extra 5k if you plan on boosting Trickstar, but I think we've kind of phased out of that. And there are a couple other like common tech options now that you can still run with, but overall, I think that he's still pretty good. Like I said, I want to play a very controlled, kind of like basic game with this deck at the moment. This isn't like a high roll deck or anything like that. This is tempo, mid-range, kind of just push, and then, you know, within reason. And then boom, your last turn, that's when you call out the Expecto or whatever it is and try to end it. So, yeah. And then lastly, we have for our grade 1s, 4 PGs. I don't think there's any debate here. Still need them in the game. Big columns are big columns. Alright, and then lastly, I guess this is still part of the main decks, are technically grade 0s, but I'm going to go over, we have 4 of our Trickstars, and then I'll put these 2 like that. But yeah, I did get the congratulations one from, I think I came in second for Standard in our shop league this past month, so I was really happy to get this. I don't know how much they go for now, but I still got the DSR too, which is pretty cool, so just wanted to go over those really quick. We obviously need these. Everything kind of flows through the Trickstars. Unfortunately, I wish there was a way to search the Trickstars a little bit easier. Sometimes I only have like 1 in play and been rotating with 1, so it just kind of sucks, but overall, maybe we'll get that next set. But going right into the triggers now, we are running obviously 1 of the over trigger, and like I've kind of been saying this whole time, our deck is kind of turned into this like control mid-range kind of deck. Not really control, but more mid-range kind of tempo. And boom, with that being said, we kind of need to survive a little bit longer, so I'm adding back in draw triggers. I kind of brought down some of the crits, one of the fronts over here. I'm still running 3 fronts, but I believe that draw triggers really help us get over the hump now of some of these attacks are absolutely huge. You know, you might just need like 10 plus cards in your hand to survive a Bruce turn these days. So with that being said, I think draw triggers really just help us get there. Also could help us filter for the right pieces and such. So I am now running 6 crit, 3 front, and 4 heal. I don't think there's any debate with the heal. The new crits are okay. I haven't really used them too much. I think I've used them like once. Basically, it just pops when this unit boosts, goes into your soul, and then choose one of your rear guards, gets an extra 2k until the end of turn. It's good on the grade 3s because you are now hitting like odd. It's kind of helping you get over different triggers. Like if your opponent guards with, you know, you're at 28, they're at 20, you know, or you're at 25 or something like that. Now it's 28 to guard. They can't just drop down a 15k shield. So I get what they're doing with this. I just don't think it's like super necessary if you have the old crits and don't want to buy these new ones. I guess it's not a big deal, but this guy is only a 4k body, just a note, instead of the 5k body that the original triggers really were. So yeah, that's my trigger lineup. Let me know what you guys are kind of running. I am curious to how things kind of changed and what people are running in that. So yeah, let's hop right over into the next deck. Alright, we did a little mat swap there, but now we are kind of focusing on what I guess Narcomies has become in Overdress, and this is my first time actually going over a deck profile for Eugene. So just looking at the ride line, obviously starting just with the on-brand grade 0, the grade 1 still from that ride line, grade 2, and so on and so forth. Just decent because you get a lot into your soul. This could put a little bit more pressure on, just becoming a 15k beater. When it's first swinging, on top of that too, just when rode upon, you get to put a card from your drop zone into your soul, which is really decent. You get to draw an extra card too. So I think that this deck, the way it has evolved, has become, obviously we're still picking and controlling our opponent's field, but on top of that, we're really looking to just gain a lot of advantage in our hand, not really expend a lot with our resources on board. So I think that this ride line kind of helps us get there and really fuels our soul for a good Eugene turn. Eugene, obviously, I guess I'll go over it since I've never done it before. You guys probably know by now, best deck, but you rest 2 rear guards and then you get to pop one of your opponent's units. On top of that, this guy gets an additional 10k to Eugene, and then its second skill, if your opponent's rear guard was retired this turn, we get to Soul Blast 5. Look at the same number of cards from the top of our deck as our opponent's open rear guard circles, and then call them to our rear guard circle. It doesn't have to be open on our side though. And then put the rest, you know, if you looked at 5, you know, you don't want to put all 5 down, put the rest into your soul, basically fueling your soul for a little bit later on. You know, this deck has really struggled previously, but I think that it's in a decent spot now. I think it actually can go toe-to-toe with some other big decks in the meta. Can be really, really annoying, kind of. It just depends on the game of the flow of the game, really, I think. So starting right off with the main deck, we are looking at 3 more Eugenes. We just want to re-ride. It's just absolutely critical. I feel like this deck actually everything goes through the Vanguard a lot more than the rear guards. Your Vanguard would be big, can exude pressure with an extra crit. I'll show you how in just a minute, but just really everything kind of funnels through this guy, so when he swings, he needs to be big. It's just absolutely imperative. The rest of your columns, I just find that Eugene doesn't hit like sweet numbers overall, comparatively speaking, when we're looking at other decks like, let's say, Bruce or even Nirvana, things like that. Like, a lot of other decks have a lot more powerful rear guards, so like I said, things really kind of focus through Eugene in this deck. Moving right along to our next grade 3, we are looking at Tribash. So Tribash still helps us exude a ton of pressure. I'm running 2 of them. I might bump this to 3. I just have to do a little bit more playtesting with it, but overall, this is where I've kind of arrived for the moment. On an earlier turn where your opponent doesn't have like an absolutely stacked hand, if you get the Tribash playoff where you just put this into your soul, your Vanguard gets an extra crit, and that just puts a lot more pressure on your opponent, just makes them guard a lot more. Maybe they expend a PG from hand, which chooses 2 cards, maybe they guard with 2 things, you know, whatever it is. That's a lot of shield value that you're basically saying, okay, like, I could potentially hit you for 3-4 crit if you let this through. So some people will, some people won't. I think that the Tribash is still really good and deserves a spot in this deck. Next up, we are actually looking at a new card we got out of DBT-03. We are going to be looking at, how do you say this guy? Piercing Bullet of Duststorm Maynard. So Maynard's actually, it seems like it's really costly, but it's actually a decent card. When this unit is placed on Van or Rearguard Circle, we get to counterblast 2, choose one of our opponent's rear guards, and retire all of your opponent's rear guards in the same column as that unit. So decks that kind of rely on units, you know, things like, you know, Magnolia, it's hard to replace things. I guess in this set it's not as hard. Nirvana, obviously this hurts a lot. Even I find that in Prison this actually hurts too quite a bit, because they you know, drive track a lot, whatever, but they don't have a lot of things to search out their units. Anyway, this guy is decent for getting rid of an entire column. I know Counterblast 2 is heavy, but there's not a ton that Counterblast in this deck. I find that at 2 of, you know, we probably are just getting off 1 per game. And popping an entire column is really big, especially when we don't have other things to kind of do it. Maybe, you know, your hand's dry or whatever the case is. Get this off the top, pop them down, boom. You can just delete that entire column. So I think it's actually pretty decent. And then lastly, we are looking at this is a new card out of DBT-03, another grade 3 actually. This is going to be Best Harvest. So this card is in normal order, so you basically have to play it during your turn. Choose one of your Vanguards until the end of your turn. It gets auto on Vanguard Circle. When your opponent's rear guard is retired during your main phase, you may draw a card. Now this is an auto skill, so if we pop off a Maynard, the card we just went over, along with this, we're just drawing 2 cards. So we may have played the Maynard, we may have played this one, but boom, we're just recycling those back. On top of that, Eugene will probably pop somebody else in your field will probably pop somebody, so you can get crazy advantage real quick with this card. I think 3 of is the right thing, like the right ratio in this deck. If you see 4 of it, like sometimes you see too many and there's just no shield value in your hand, it's not a body on board, it makes it a little bit tough. So I like it at 3 of. I think that it really is like the only hope that this deck kind of has. If you see that and get a lot of hand advantage and can just outpace your opponent, I think that you could have a much easier time with the game. But still waiting for the last 2 SPs on this, but we are going to be looking at a new grade 2 out of DBT-03 again. This is going to be Howitzer of Duststorm Dustin. So anyway, its skill auto when this rear guard is placed on Rearguard Circle. If your Vanguard, is Heavy Artillery of Duststorm Eugene, put a card from your hand into your soul, draw a card, choose one of your opponent's grade 2 or greater rear guards, and retire it. So this can be front row, back row, doesn't matter, just grade 2 or higher. And then its second skill, auto on Rearguard Circle. When this unit attacks Soul Blast 1, this guy gets an additional 2k until the end of battle for each one of your opponent's open Rearguard Circles. So again, we want to be absolutely blitzing out our opponent's fields just to make this guy as big as possible. So if you have 5, boom, this guy just got an extra 10k on top of maybe a Persona Ride, maybe just, your boosting on top of that. This could easily reach like that 38, 40, 43k kind of column. So overall, I do like this guy quite a bit. I think this is definitely a rear guard that we needed. We need more powerful rear guards in this deck, and I think this is a step in the right direction to maybe, bring Eugene to light in competitive play. Next up, we are going to be looking at 4 of this guy. This is going to be Strong Fortress Dragon. Oh my god, I'm not even going to say it. Jubrachio, I think that's how to say it. Basically, we've had this since DBT-02, but this guy, if your Vanguard is Eugene, you get a Soul Blast 1, arrest this, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, and retire it. It's really nice that it's not like grade locked. You don't have to be grade 2 or greater, it could be anything. So a lot of these cards are locked behind like grade 2 or greater, so just remember that if you want to pop this guy off, pop another rear guard with something else, this guy can hit anything. Its second skill, at the beginning of your battle phase, if your opponent has 1 or less rear guards, stand this guy, gets an additional 5k until the end of turn. So I know, 15k seems to be the standard for rear guards, I guess, in Overdress at the moment. So as long as it's hitting that threshold, I guess it's not too bad. You're 25k on a Persona Ride, you could be boosted to get over that too, as well as 33, whatever it is. So Still not bad, not the best card in the world, but it's nice because you can rest this off of Eugene and still have it stand up during the battle phase, like making Eugene's cost just a little bit less costly overall. So finally, moving into the grade 1s now, I'm actually looking at 4 of one of these new guys that we got. This is going to be a Dragrifter Shihab. So I actually really like Shihab. When this unit is placed on rearguard circle, this guy gets an initial 5k until the end of turn, and when you would ride from your ride deck, you can ride with put this unit into your soul, instead of choose a card from your hand and discard it. So just a heads up, this has to be on field. I saw somebody kind of say that, like, oh, you could do that from hand, but no, it's continuous on rearguard circle, obviously, but you can yeah, just basically what this does, it's like a twofold kind of thing. So first off, if you're going second, this is great. You have this card, pop it down, becomes an 11k body, swing at them with an extra attack. On top of that, the next turn, you're basically telling your opponent, look, if you don't take this guy off the field, I'm gonna just put this into my soul and kind of retain my hand advantage overall, and just like I could pace a little bit better, and there's just more value for that. So yes, you might think, oh, you're basically still negging 2 cards, you're calling this down, getting that attack, and then you're gonna get it attacked away. But at the same time, you just soaked some damage. You know, you didn't take damage from your opponent. If you're looking to take a lot of damage, I guess don't call this guy down, but overall, I think that this actually, that one extra attack that might have gone towards this guy really actually helps. So yeah, I like this guy. I think that's kind of a little bit of an early game tool that we haven't had previously. If your opponent plans on rushing you down, you know that. Maybe it's not the greatest thing to put it in the front row, maybe just put it in the back. But yeah, I like it. I think it's actually pretty decent. Here we are. And then lastly, we are looking at still 4 of Dragrifter Idris. I think that's how to say it. Basically, when your opponent's rearguard is retired, we get to counterblast 1 and choose one of the following. We get to either give this guy an additional 10k, or we get to give this guy, put this into our soul and then retire. I think it's one of the grade 2 or greater rearguards, yeah, on our opponent's field. So this guy is a 5k base, so it can either be a 15k booster, which is actually really nice. Again, we're not hitting like sweet numbers in this deck in general, so this really helps us with that little extra boost. Or, you know, if we need that soul maybe to get off like an extra retire or whatever the case is, this can really help us there too. But I still think this deserves a spot in the deck, so I am keeping it there at a 4 of. And then last, for the main cards in the main deck, we are looking at 4 PGs. Nothing really crazy to say here. We just need PGs. PGs are good. You know, they help us block out big Bastion attacks, big Bruce attacks, whatever the case is. So I really like this. You know, obviously we're running 4 of. And then moving into the triggers, let's see if I can kind of frame this right over here. Again, I realized I did it without zooming out on Nirvana, so I guess I'll just keep it all the same here. We are going to be looking at 1 over trigger. No debate, you know, this is a good one. You want to restand your Eugene, make him big, boom, you do that right here. I think that too, a good Eugene player, before I go into this next trigger, a good Eugene player will realize you should not be using the second skill of Eugene every single turn. That is a 100% guaranteed deck out. Like, you were just going to deck out. I think the limit, honestly, on that second skill to get that top 5 or top 4, whatever it is, and call it down, that it really should be 1, 2 per game kind of max. A lot of your rear guards now use Soul Blasts, and you should kind of be conserving that for those good rear guards. On top of that, like I said, you're just going to deck out. So keep that in mind before you kind of judge this inclusion, but I am running 2 draws in here. We're looking for more hand advantage. We're looking, again, to kind of pace a little bit better and just control our opponent. The draws kind of help us get there, get some of those key rear guards that we might need to put that control on the board. And again, if we're not spamming Eugene's second skill, we're not going to really deck out that easily. So with that being said, I am including 2 extra of there. So it's kind of like you have 3 draws overall with that over trigger, 4 heals, no debate there. I'm still including 2 of these fronts just because the 20k shield does really help. And again, like I said, this whole time, we're not making the best numbers in the world. Fronts really help us out, kind of patch that up. So I still like that. 2 additional crits, and then 4 of the new crits that go into Soul. Now, these are actually decent because you can call these off the top, and yeah, they're only a 4k booster, but they help us kind of get over those magic trigger numbers with that additional 2k, so I do like these. I think that they're a good addition to the game. They're not like overpowered or anything, but they are good. So especially in Eugene that uses like a ton of soul, it's really good. So, and obviously, oh, I'm sorry, I was holding out on a crit. I guess I'm just screwing up over here, right? So yeah, 1 over trigger, 2 draws, 4 heal, 2 fronts. How many crit? That's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 7 crit. And yeah, that's pretty much the trigger lineup for Eugene. Alright, next up we are looking at the King of Dragon Empire. We're going to be looking at Dragonic Overlord, so nothing too crazy. Obviously just running the regular ride line with Bar. Bar is actually really good. You know, if your Vanguard's attack does hit, this gets an extra 5k on rearguard circle, and then when rode upon, we get to counterblast 1, search our deck for a grade 1 card, reveal it, and then put it into our hand, shuffle our deck, and then Nahalem, as well as our Overlord. So Overlord obviously restands attacks, so on and so forth. Really good for just kind of putting this like weird control on your opponent, basically forcing things off of their field. On top of that, Nahalem kind of powers them both up, so you're going to be a 15k and an 18k swinging overall, so it makes it more than just like a one card to guard. This guy is very, very necessary for the deck. I'm actually really happy with the ride line. I think the ride line is definitely one of the better ones in Dragon Empire in general. I think that it works out really, really nice. So moving right along, and then just like every other Dragon Empire deck, no surprise here, we are looking to re-ride. This is Dragonic Overlord, the deck. Basically, it just, you know, you want to re-ride, you want to make your Vanguard as powerful as possible, so your re-swing is just like way more impactful, a little bit more card advantage overall is nice. I think that this is like, this honestly might be the best deck in Dragon Empire. It's hard to say that with Verena, but overall, like, this is super easy to play. It's easy to kind of like calculate against your opponent. I think that this is probably, yeah, if I had to pick one deck, I guess I would kind of take this to go into like a big tournament with. As surprising as that sounds, I played this against Bruce. I do really well against Bruce with this deck. You know, it's not really rear guard reliant. You're really relying on your Vanguards easily. Like a turtle deck, you can just, you know, kind of huddle up and conserve your resources, swing at them, and at times they're just going to have to let things through, and if they don't, you know, they might not have counterblast, they might not be able to do anything on their turn. So I actually really do like this deck, and the Vanguard was pretty well designed, I think. Moving right along into that's our only grade 3 in the deck. I don't run Tri-Bash, I don't run any of the other fancy stuff. I just took that out. Overall, I just don't find it as impactful overall. Inherently, you have just a bit more crit pressure with the restanding Vanguard, but this guy kind of helps us with that again, just more Nahalems, making sure that you get that extra 5k on both itself to hit that 15k threshold, as well as your Vanguard. So really nice. And obviously when it's rode upon too, you get to call it to rear guard circle. Forgot about that before, so you don't have to expend a lot from your hand to just kind of create this board out of nowhere. So I actually really do like this card. It is very good, still in there out of 4 of. Another card that is still in here, we are still looking at 4 Berserk Dragon. Berserk Dragon is just simply good, again, hitting that 15k threshold, as well as controlling your opponent's field a little bit. You get that extra counterblast, or you counterblast and get that extra retire with the grade 2 or less rear guard on your opponent's field. So kind of hidden behind that grade, but at the same time, it still works, you know, 9 times out of 10. I do still like this card. It's a 15k body. You don't have to use that counterblast if you don't want to. The 15k for free is like the real, I guess, allure of this card. And as of yet, we don't have anything to really replace it with. Next up, something I actually did replace a couple cards here, and I'll flash on the screen, which you can put back into the deck a little bit later, but I am actually looking at 3 of this new card. This is going to be Stun Voltec Dragon. So it's continuous on rear guard circle. If your Vanguard's attack hits this turn, this guy gets an additional 10k. So previously we had a card that made us go to, what was it? Made us kind of go to a 15k a little bit earlier into the game, but early game pressure, yeah, it's good, but it's not like the mainstay. If we can get a rear guard to hit like an over a trigger and then boom beyond. So if we're 18k, if they have if our Vanguard attack hits, which it probably will, and then we are persona riding, this is a 28k. So it's, you know, assuming your opponent hasn't hit a trigger, this is more than just like a 15k one trigger to guard kind of attack, which is actually really nice. I think that hitting that threshold really helps. You can swap this out for the card I was previously running. I just don't remember its name off the top of my head, but again, I'll flash that on the screen. But I'm choosing to run this guy. I'm trying this. I think the ceiling is a little bit higher with this card comparatively. So yeah, I think it's decent. Like previously you had to boost that guy. You don't need to boost this one to still hit and threaten to hit for an over that 5k thing. So I really like that aspect. Next up, we are looking at 2 again of a new card. This is Steel Bullet of Duststorm Ethan. So this kind of looks like a Eugene card, but it really fits in this deck a lot better. It's skill auto on rear guard circle. When our Vanguard's attack hits, cost retire this unit, draw a card, and countercharge 1. So a little more card draw, again, helping us kind of turtle, like I said, if we wanted to, not expend too much. And then the countercharge is like huge. So when your Vanguard hits, so you can swing in with Overlord, pop this guy off, and have the countercharge to enable your Vanguard to stand up. So really do like this card. I think this is actually a really great addition to the deck, kind of at that 2 of tech. I think that's the right ratio for it overall. I pretty much use it every time I saw it, so maybe I'll up it. I don't really know at this point, but I think that it is good at 2 right now. Try it out and let me know. But again, we're still running this card over here, Burn Bright Pure Prayer. So if we have 3 or more damage, this our Vanguard just gets an additional 15k until the end of battle, and this is a Blitz order, so we're using this defensively. Again, just kind of, I feel like every deck almost kind of has this in Dragon Empire. It is kind of like a low and slow. Don't overextend, don't, you know, go absolutely crazy. If you do that and just kind of pace out, right, I think that you're going to win the game with any of these decks, really. So this really helps us do that and just defensively curl up a little bit more and make us a bit beefier. Moving into our grade 1s here, still running 3 more of Bar. Bar is actually really good. It's that search target I usually go for when I look for in the ride line, Counterblast ones, find itself. It's a really nice booster too because it can hit that 13k threshold, so you can use that as an early attacker. If they don't get rid of it, you can slide it back, put something else in front of it, and just make really sweet columns overall. So I actually really like Bar. All the kind of cards specifically for Overlord and Kagero are pretty good in Overdress, so I really like those. I'm still running 2 Tenchestead. I think that the ability to kind of go and grab your Vanguard is really useful at times. If you have a lot of counterblasts, you can definitely go and do that. It's just, this is Overlord the deck. We need to find Overlord. If you re-ride consistently 3 turns in a row, it's really hard for your opponent to kind of get over that sometimes. So I believe that this card is still good. You can trim it down if you want to. It's no big deal. I'll show you what you can kind of replace right now. I am now running actually 2 of these cards. You could run 1 more of this. This is going to be Stealth Dragon Fushimachi Madoka. I think that's how to say it. On Vanguard or Guardian Circle Continuous. If your opponent's drop has 4 or more cards, this guy gets an additional 2k and 5k shield. And then if it has 8 or more cards, this guy gets an additional 5k shield. So you're essentially retiring like a ton of your opponent's cards, and as such, boom, like you're gonna be filling up their drop. They're gonna guard against certain things. It's not hard to hit that 15k threshold, and you could have a 15k guard with this, which is really nice. If you have to call this as a booster, hitting that 10k is decent overall. Like let's say you boost the what was it, that grade 2. This is 10k, it's 28k, naturally. Persona Ride, 38k. Again, just hitting like really nice numbers, making it harder for your opponent to guard overall. And I'm thinking I might bump this up 1 more just because it is really good when I see it. But overall, right now, I'm trying it at that 2, and I don't think it's too bad. I think that's the biggest question mark in the deck at the moment. Another card that we are still including in this deck is, Dragon Monk Gojo. So basically a decent card, just in that when your opponent's hit, retire this guy, countercharge 1. You can choose to put more of the other grade 2s in there, but I don't know. I think that as a booster, sometimes you just want it straight up as a booster, whereas the grade 2 can't do that. So the 2-2 split is decent overall. The other guy gets you another card draw, but this guy gets the boost, which, sometimes hitting those numbers are more important. It's really up to you and what you perceive to be more important in the game at the moment. So yeah, tailor your deck to whatever way you like to play, but I'm still running 2 of those. And then lastly, for our main deck, we are running 4 PGs. Again, I don't think there's any deck where you don't run PGs. Yeah, I don't think, me personally at least, I know there's like the Phantom Blaster thing without that, but I personally run 4 of our Sentinels in every single deck. Moving right along, we are looking at the trigger lineup. Obviously, the over trigger, no surprise there. I'm still going for a rather aggressive kind of play here. I think this is both defensive and aggressive, I guess, because I guess I value the fronts in this deck a little bit more than some other people. The 20k shield is really nice. Expending 1 card to guard is sometimes really good. On top of that, you're giving value to not only your front row but your Vanguard too, because your Vanguard is restanding. So making sure that you hit sweet numbers with your rear guards as well as your Vanguard again is really impactful. So I still do like the fronts personally, so I'm still running that at 4 of. I'm running 4 heals, and then I believe it's 7 crit over here. I just haven't swapped the crits out yet. Don't crucify me, please. These would probably be the new crits that go into Soul, give that extra 2k to a rear guard. So yeah, nothing too spicy there. I think that's probably the most tame kind of trigger lineup I think I've presented here today, but I'm sure this video has gone on way too long, so thank you guys all so much for watching. I'm not going to do a test hand on every single one. This video would just be probably like an hour long, so I'm sorry about that. If you guys do really want some, to request the games down below. I'll try to get those on camera. Yeah, let me know what you guys think of any of these decks. If you guys have any questions, any suggestions, let me know what you guys are running. Always happy to hear from you guys, and thank you guys so much for watching. This is Alex from Team Generations, signing out.